Say hi, baby.
Hi.
Here's my youngest. She never leaves me alone. Hi, guys.
I do at night.
Sometimes, yeah. All right, well, it is that time again, and I am out here talking about influential moments in my life. So I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible, but who knows? It's a long, long story. When I was in school at 19 years old, I was all the way over in Idaho, first semester of school, and Thanksgiving came around, and my parents didn't have a lot of money. My dad was an entrepreneur, and we had 6 kids, and money was always tight. So I could not come home. We didn't have the money to get me home on Thanksgiving break. So a friend of ours took me with their family up to Island Park so I could go snowmobiling with them and stay in their cabin and have Thanksgiving with them. So we snowmobiled all weekend, and on the very last day, on the very last run, right before we got all of our stuff back on the sleds to get back to the car, I was snowmobiling and I came around a corner and I hit a drift and I went off a small cliff. I slammed into a tree and it wrapped me around the tree, and then the snowmobile slammed into my back. And I broke my right arm completely in half. You can't really see these scars anymore, which is great because I've got scars on both arms. Here's the other one. We'll talk about that one on another day. So, yeah, so I had broken my arm completely in half, and then I had to have surgery, and my parents didn't have the money to come out and be with me. I was all alone. I was 19, and it took forever to get to the hospital, and I ended up having surgery, and then a week later, I fell again on the ice in Idaho, because ice covers everything, and I re-broke it, because Blue! At first they had just put 2 pins in the bottom of my elbow, but when I re-broke it, they put this giant screw. I would say it's about, I don't know, it's pretty big and it's pretty long. It's about that long. It goes straight down in my elbow. I can't show you. And there's wires, and it holds all my bones together in there. So yeah, I was in that cast, excuse my dog. I was in that cast for a really long time, and Christmas time came around and I was able to fly home. So I got on the plane, I had my giant cast on and my sling, and I had my little bag, and I was going home for Christmas. My parents were desperate to get me home after the surgery. And as I was sitting on the plane, they came over the loudspeaker right before we were getting ready to take off, and they said that there was a man who needed to have a seat on that plane. He needed to get back to Kentucky because his family had been in a horrible car crash, and his wife and his kids were in the hospital, and this guy really desperately needed to get home. And they were asking for somebody to give up their seat so that this man could get home to his family. And we sat there, and we sat there, and then they said, okay, well, we'll offer you free miles if you give up your seat. And we all sat there, and we all sat there, and everybody wanted to get home for Christmas. I was sitting there thinking, my mom is going to kill me. And they asked one more time, and I stood up. I grabbed my bag. Guys, go inside. Both of you. I'm trying to make a video. So I stood up, I grabbed my bag, I walked down to the front of the plane, I turned around, and I'm like, I held up my arm, and I'm like, I was just in a horrible accident, and I had surgery twice, and I'm the one giving up my seat. I really hope that y'all think about that. And I got off the plane, and then I had to make the horrible call to my mother and tell her that I got off the plane and had nowhere to go and no way to get home. And she was livid. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. I eventually made it to St. Louis, and some friends picked me up and let me sleep. But that night, when I got off the plane, I had to sleep on the floor of an airport. And yeah, my mom could have killed me. But who would have sat there and not given up their seat? I was okay. I wasn't dying, and I gave up my seat. And this guy was in tears, so grateful when I got off the plane. And he made it, as far as I know, he made it home to his family. And that's a part of the story. And what that influenced me is that, you know, there are always people worse off than you. You know, yeah, I had a broken arm. Yeah, I was in pain. Yeah, I was getting ready to fly home. But you know what? That guy was losing his family. And there was no way I was going to sit there and let that guy sit in an airport while his family was in a hospital struggling for their life. So that taught me to remember that there's always someone suffering worse than you, and you can always do something to help. The other part of this story, hold on.